Hey guys, Hemi Vertible here. You have it. You don't see that every day. 1969 Dodge Charger RT 4-speed shifter and linkage. It's really old, it's worn out, it's loose. It is really put some time in. Check that out. The old second boot, the bottom boot, actually had a cover. It looks like, yeah, maybe it was chrome, I don't know. Probably just a steel cover over top of the flat shifter boot that seals out you know, the weather from underneath the car. That's the piece that runs across from the shifter on the side of the transmission, jumps across and goes up through the bottom of the console. And there's the old Hurst stamped in the side of it. Oh yeah. A nice piece. All it needs is get some new pieces inside of there. It should be like brand new. Probably needs, like I said before, needs a replacement spring. That detent's got to be shot. There's absolutely no push at all to keep it out of reverse. It goes in reverse way too easy. Oh yeah, so I got her all set up in the vise here. Made like a little tool. Evidently you got to get in behind that piece in there, and there's like a detent in the shifter that holds it in place. See, I don't know if I can do this while I'm watching. Trying to bend on me. Alright, so I got that piece down in there a little bit. I don't know how far I really got it in there, but let's just see if we can pull on it now. That's alright, I don't want to come out of there. I'll tap on it with the hammer a couple times. See if we can get it out. Looks like it moved a little bit. Hard to tell. I know, that sucker is in there. All right, I'll try it again by hand. Not really what I wanted to do with my shifter, but I had to basically tap it out. Got that piece down in there past that. You see where the detent goes in there. In that hole, once it gets down inside of here, we'll pull that out next, but it was in there so tight I have to tap it out. I don't want to drop out on the floor on me, but it looks like I'm gonna end up doing that. Oh, there she goes. Look at that. Hot dog. Man, that was like a fight. Look in there. It got some isolators and stuff in there. Always wondered what held it in there. It's got a detent in there that holds it. Once you put that detent in there, you got isolators on both sides of this thing, and kind of holds all that in there. And down inside of there, it's got like a little clip that once you push it down so far, it grabs that hole in there. So we'll get this pulled out, and maybe we'll take a look at it when we get it out. Oh yeah, I pulled the dust cover off, and all this crap came out from inside of there. So that thing was filthy. Holy smokes, it was dirty. Pulled that dust cover. Actually, the dust cover fell off the back because I was pulling the whole thing up through there when I was tapping on it. Then I took the bolt out to get it in the vise. So, all right, get this isolator out of there. So check that out. We got the two pieces out of there, the isolators off of both sides, and here are the both, and it's actually both of them have that little indented section on there. It's pretty cool. And then of course I got the little isolator on the outside, the metal piece side, and when you slide the handle down in there, this catches the grip on the handle itself. And then on the other side, they have the same thing, But what's really cool is on the handle itself, it has the, there's a little indentation in there where you can see it's made for that little clip to catch it on that side, and then on the other side, it's just flat. There's nothing for it to catch it. So when it slides in there, it pops in, and they're supposed to pop, it's always on the driver's side. So if you have a shifter that's not the bolt-in type, that's what you got to do. Get that little piece slid down in there to release that clip, and then you can, well, I wasn't able to pull it out. I had to tap it out. And evidently it's, you know, fairly tough to get it back in once you get it out of there. So we'll get this piece thrown in some carb cleaner and soak that baby all up, clean it up real good, and get a rebuild kit and check everything out once we get it apart, see what needs to be redone. Like I said before, this thing, it was really easy to put in reverse, so I had to be careful when to put it in reverse, because it felt like when you went over, there was no detent. It just slammed into reverse with no problem. You're supposed to be able to push it over and get to first gear and just go forward without worrying about hitting it into reverse. But this one just absolutely worn out, and I think the detent spring, I'm probably going to find out that it's broken in there. But if not, it's just weak and worn out, and 55 years of love and terror. So we'll get a look at it and see what happens. All right, guys, so we basically left this baby to soak for a day or so, and brushed her off with some just some very old parts cleaner. So I was gonna got this thing a little started here so I can open it up with you. But basically I just got a screwdriver in between the outside here and pried it open a little bit so we can pull that cover off. It's just kind of held in there with those two tabs. Might have boogered it up a little bit, but not too awfully bad. It's kind of funny too, because it looks like my shaft that goes through there is stuck on my bolt. I'll have to get that off of there somehow. Pretty funny, but you know, for the most part, once you take all that out, the whole shebang fall right out of there. Undo this little bolt on the back and turn that sideways. There we go. 7/16. I think I saw a video where the guy did this. So, oh yeah, we gotta turn that so we can get it all together. Of course, she's stuck on there. Give her a tap or two. Still not far enough. There we go. Turn there. Now let's see if we can get. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that's the trick. Take that out. Turn it sideways. And there's your clamshell. Ooh, pretty dirty in there. So our clamshell there. Move some stuff out of the way. Then we got our receiver and carrier there. So here comes, what is this one? This has got to be 3rd and 4th gear, all the way up there. This has got to be 1st and 2nd. So go like that. 1st and 2nd. Got that clamp. Reverse, and another little slider on the other end. So we got slider, gate, slider, gate, gate, gate. So we have no slider between these two gates. Now this is the tough part. Oh yeah, there's the reverse detent. I thought that was broken, but maybe the spring is just loose. It's really cool though that that's all they hold that sucker on there, the pin with. The pin is held in with two roll pins, one on each side of the shifter, and the springs are in there. You got the one spring, and then you got the reverse detent. Oh, I see. So the reverse detent is a completely separate spring that's pushed in with this. This pushes on the main spring when you're shifting the other two gears, and when it comes in, it hits this detent, and it's got to push double spring to get over into reverse. So I think my reverse detent is weak because it's definitely shifted way too easy. Get in reverse. Either that or the top of the detent is just worn out. I'd say it's probably the top of the detent. You can see we even got like a wear spot in the little plunger there from the detent getting hit. So, all right, well, now we got a part. We'll get it all cleaned up again, and then we gotta get these springs out of here and replace all that stuff. I got a whole replacement kit coming in. Quite the mess. I am surprised though that there wasn't a steel between. I have to look at the installation kit or look at an exploded view. I'm surprised it wasn't a steel in between these two. So this is pretty cool. This is basically a Hurst 4-speed shifter pulled out of the little clamshell. Pulled it out of there. And this is the little plunger there that's the gear selector. And this is basically a gate. So when it's setting straight up and down, it's in the 3/4 gate. And when you take the handle and pull it over to the 1/2 gear, basically this arm pulls over this way and pulls the plunger in that direction. So when the plunger goes in that direction, you see the arm move up. It moves it over to the second gate, which is first and second gear. So it's in the first gate, then it goes to the second gate. Got it in the way there. And it shifts first and second back and forth. Then when you go to reverse, it's supposed to go past into that second, third gate, and it's supposed to, in order to get to this gate, it's supposed to hit this reverse detent here, and it's got its own little spring up in there that the detent's supposed to hit. You know, the 1/2 spring up on top, which is the wider diameter spring up in the top there, and then you have that return spring that's setting on that little detent. So going from third, fourth gate to the first and second gate, they're using that big spring, and then you see that really tight spring there. That's the neutral or the reverse detent. So what's supposed to happen is once it hits that reverse detent, it makes it a lot harder for you to get it over into reverse. Well, I had the problem where my shifter would just go right into reverse, and I thought for sure that maybe that spring had broken or that detent had broken. But little did I know that the plunger is so worn. There's a notch right there where it's supposed to hit the reverse detent. Nothing. It doesn't touch it anymore. So I could really just go from third, fourth over to first and second and accidentally just push it right into reverse because there's no detent. I got this thing completely apart. We're going to go ahead and rebuild it, put new springs, put a new plunger in it. Got new detent and everything for it, and we'll get it all cleaned up. I'm going to soak it, do whatever it takes to make this baby like it's brand new. Okay, guys, so I went ahead and soaked our parts in this chem dry stuff there for like 2 days solid, and yeah, they came out, got all the grease and everything off, but there's still a lot of residual stuff left on it. I guess it's almost on the bottom here. It looks like it's, you know, paint. But I'm going to go ahead and do like I did to the shifter box here. I went ahead and Just hit it with a wire wheel, cleaned it up really good, and I'm gonna hit it with some WD-40 or whatever, just temporary, to make sure it doesn't start rusting before I clean it and paint it. So I got this baby in there. It's not really super tight crushing anything, but it's fairly snug. I'm gonna go ahead and try to tap out those pins. See the pins that hold the plunger in there. Get them out, and then we can take the springs out. All right, so we're gonna give this a shot. I'm not really sure I can put enough tension on this. I might have to get a bracket like a lot of the guys do and put a bolt through here and hold it in place with that. I don't want to tear the shifter up with the vise, so let's see if we can just tap these pins out. Of course, you want to use a pin punch. It's very specific. It's got a little tip on the end of it, along with the outside to knock the pin out. Seem to be working pretty good. It might be a little too fat. Doesn't seem like it wants to go through there, so we'll work on this one a little bit. Let's work on this other side. All right, so we'll go down to the next size. I didn't want to make it too small because I don't want to push into the pin. Let's try this one, see if it'll go through there. Pin basically has to go through the hole in the plunger, so it's got to be thin enough to do that. All right, so both the pins are out. You can release that, and out comes our plunger. Get the old tool up in there and try to pull that spring out. So there's a reverse detent. It just slides down through the middle of the spring into this slot on the back side of the shifter. So there's our reverse detent. Pretty cool. I thought it was broken or worn out or something. It looks like it's in pretty good shape. I'm gonna compare that to the new one. I might just put that one back in there. Sometimes, you know, I feel like old parts are better than the new ones. We'll go ahead and see. I'm gonna span this down a little bit again because it washer's right there. So I'm gonna try to knock that washer out of the way, and then that spring's gonna come out this end, capture that spring that comes flying out of there, so it doesn't go across the shop and bounce off and back and hit my car or something. Knife that I'm going to slot so that I can put the whole thing back together. But go ahead and see if we can tap that washer out. Oh yeah, there goes the washer. All right, so get that washer out of the way, and the spring's going to want to come out of there. If I got the washer all the way out of the way. I think it might still be in there a little bit, so tap on it some more. Looks like I got tapping the spring out of the way. Take that pressure off of that spring. Get that pressure off of that spring. Get it back into that hole. So maybe it'll come out. All right, so the spring's through the hole, which means my washer must be out of the way. So there you go. A little bit of a fight. We get that reverse spring out of there. That thing goes right down through the middle of it, compresses it. It's really tight, so man, when you go to put that car in reverse, you know you're trying to put it in reverse, I'll tell you that much. But we had nothing. We had absolutely nothing coming in there. And for our reverse. So let's see this one here. Just be able to slide it right out. Now the trick's gonna be getting all this stuff back in. You might have to go a little bit more of a fixture on it. Here we'll go cover this spring up, make sure it doesn't go flying. Boing, there it is right there. So that really doesn't have anywhere near the pressure on it that the return spring has on it, but it definitely looks like it's molded to the angle of the shifter here. Just use my little mini monkey wrench. How's that? And this is like a case bolt. It's got the old rectangular end or hexagonal end, or no, it is a square on the other end there that fits right into the case. There's a little bar. Got a washer under there too. Don't forget about that washer that's underneath of there. There it goes, and she's apart. Now we'll go ahead and get everything cleaned up, and it'll be time to start putting her back together again. All right, guys. So we hit everything with the wire wheel. Pretty much cleaned up everything nicely. I'm gonna get inside of here. Probably get a little wire brush or something to get inside of that, inside of these as well. But for the most part, all the outside of everything is spick and span. You can see all the part numbers on everything, and it looks like the shifter's 190-443, which was guarantee that's the original shifter out of my '69 Dodge Charger, because that, like I said, that button was worn out. It's pretty crazy that that chewed that thing up like that, but yeah, it is what it is. We'll put a brand new one on there, and we'll be good to go. All right, about ready to start sticking her back together. All right, guys, so here we go. Got everything laid out nicely here, all the old cleaned up parts and the new pieces. I have two detents here because I'm going to use the new one to put a vice grip on to push down that reverse spring, so that I can get this little tool I made up in there, so that we can capture the spring to slide the washer over top of that to retain it in this carrier or the receiver. The 3 gates are here, you know, reverse, first, second, third, and fourth. This is basically where the plunger lives. If it's in neutral, it sits in that 3-4 gear. The plunger is, of course, retained with these 2 stakes, these 2 roll pins. I have roll pin punches that I bought to put these in. These are the spacers. This spacer goes closest to the receiver. This spacer goes between reverse and the first, second gate. These 2 gates here go together. I'm not sure why they don't get a spacer between them, but that's the way it's designed. There's no spacer going between the 1, 2, 3, 4 shift levers. I call them gates, shift levers, same thing. Of course, up here we've got the handle, press handle. It has the little clips in it that retain it. You saw how we had to put that piece of metal down in between the shifter and the handle here to get that thing to pop out of there. Obviously, this is the shifter housing with a plate in the front, little dust cover, bolt holds it to the transmission. You have the nut and plate that goes across the face of this when it all goes together. Goes up through the shifter right there and holds it in place. We got our 2 to 3, 4 shifter spring, reverse spring. Of course, this is the little collar that everything rides on, up on top of there. And we're going to go ahead and start slapping this baby back together. Now, the first thing, you know, it's kind of like 3 different phases, so to speak. You got to get your carrier and receiver put together with all your springs. This is what I think this is obviously the hardest part. and that's why you end up with like this little special tool, and you have to use this detent to press this spring down so you can get the tool over top of it, yada yada. We'll go through that, but tried to do it without having a home built carrier set up to put it all together. I'm just going to put it together with the old trusty vise, the old Matco tool vise. How do you like that? Christmas present for my son Steven. So we're going to go ahead and utilize that so that you guys at home don't need to have that special carrier or holding set up to put it all together. I think I can do it with just a little homemade putty knife. Now they've made the really flexible putty knives, and then they have really hard ones. I got this really hard one so that it'll manipulate that spring a little bit better. And it did when we took it apart, so I think this is going to work out nice. And once again, instead of having a tool, specialty tool, to push down this spring, I'm just going to use a pair of vice grips on top of here, and I'm going to try to press that down with that detent and see if that gets it down far enough that I can get that little knife in there to get the washer on top of it, because the washer is what retains it inside this carrier section. So, but I got everything all cleaned up nicely, good to go. I'm going to grease it all up. I've seen a bunch of guys using little brushes and stuff out there. I'm just going to use my fingers and squish it around. You don't need a lot of grease on everything. You just need to cover like a surface coating on it all. You know, you want quite a good bit, but you don't want it smushing all together and just making it hard to squeeze it all together inside the housing. And also, the more grease you have on there, the more dust it's going to collect riding down the road. So we'll try to keep it to a minimum. At the same time, have enough on there that everything's going to slide back and forth nicely. The other thing we'll talk about when we're going through it is these plates. You can see it has like that little notch on it there to the right. That's got to go like forward in it. This one here, it's got has a little nick on the plate there, and then it's radius back here. But for the most part, if you looked at it inside this housing, you can see that it's got the notch up here for this one. Sits up in there, kind of like that. And then this little, let's see, yeah, there you go. This, up in there, and this kind of kicks up in here, misses that notch, misses the bolt. Same thing with the second one. It's flat on the back here up against the carrier or the housing, and the front kicks up in the front to make sure that you're missing that bolt. I think if you flipped them around the other way, number one, this one would just kick back here with that little tab sticking out. It wouldn't go all the way back. It would stick up into the hole. I think they would both possibly stick into the hole if you had them in that direction. So we'll make sure that we get these right. Once again, the thin one goes up against the carrier, and the thicker of the two plates goes in between first and second, third and fourth gates. And then the little retainer, or the retention spring or tightening spring or whatever you want to call it, goes all the way in the end of it after all the plates are stacked in on the other side of this one, so that when it's stacked in, it creates pressure to hold everything together nice and snug, so it's not rattling and making a bunch of noise driving down the road, or you don't get the gate lined up perfectly. And this backing plate ends up on the back like that, and then this ends up, you know, right in that gate, so it ends up in there like that, but it's actually this way. It's up in here like that. The reverse is in that thing like this. So we'll go ahead and get started. Like I said, we got basically 3 sections to go through here. The first one's going to be carrier receiver, springs, little retaining bolt, and the little detent, reverse detent, along with staking the arm. All right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and load her up in the vise. All right, so just lightly grease all this stuff. A whole bunch of stuff on the internet. People use all kinds of different greases and this and that, silicone, and I'm just using regular old Lucas marine grease because I feel like this is kind of exposed to the weather, so to speak. All right, so the first thing you need is get this carrier in here. As we know that the spring and the retainer goes through here, so this whole thing has to go in there like that so that it can go back and forth. What we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get this spring started in here. I think I'm going to be able to get it in there with just my fingers and not use the tool, but let's give it a shot and see what happens. Of course, that one goes, the big one goes up here in that top hole. It doesn't really sit in a hole, but it kind of sits right next to it. And I'm just going to press the spring in and slide that baby in there at the same time. Which I think if I did not have the grease on it, it wouldn't have done that. Give me just a little bit of slide so that spring slid right into place. So one of the things you want to remember when you're sticking this piece, carrier into the receiver, is over here's where the reverse detent has the slot on top here, and then you just have the little single slot come out of the bottom here. This side has the hole in it. There's no hole on this side. Put the flat section of this shifter up against the side over here that has the hole and the slot for the detent to go through this way. If you put it this way, it ends up being shifted backwards. So it's got to go in that direction. If you put it in the other direction, you'll be doing like me. You'll be doing it twice. Truth comes out. I stuck it all together once incorrectly. Even after watching all the videos, it wasn't hard to do. It was pretty obvious I had it backwards though when I put it together. I put those pins in, when I put the pins in the arm on both sides here through the plunger, it didn't actuate properly. It was all banged up. So the first thing we're going to do is put the light spring for 3/4 to over to 1/2 in here. And I'm just going to take it and push it down in there and slide the carrier down in there using the carrier itself, or the receiver itself, to compress the spring and get it so that it lines up with this top hole up here in the carrier. Down in there, just take yourself a little screwdriver and try to line it up nicely. Sets down in there pretty well. I feel like it sets in there better this way than it had when I had it wrong. But hey, it's how we learn, right? All right, so we've got one spring in, and then last time what I wanted to do, and I'll do it again this time, is go ahead and put this carriage bolt in for the detent so that we have this located on the up and down in the carrier itself. Last time it was pretty tough getting it in. Just try to line those holes up just looking through there. And I think the last time I actually had to put the screwdriver in here to raise that hole a little hair, because when the spring's pressing it down, actually wants to hide over there a little bit. So just take this and we'll put a little bit of pressure on the spring, make sure screwdriver's out of the hole. Slide that in there. Right, so we're still a little high there. Just trying to raise the whole thing up there. It's a little bit of a fight to get this sucker down through there, but you got to start it. That's half the battle. Square it up in the hole. Just got to play with the spring, get it through there at the same time. And of course, you know, it's not going to go through there if the carriage doesn't line up. Like a square hole in there. So there we go. Got that pin through there. There we go. We get the spring in here. Place. Well, you know, we got this one up here is a little bit in the way, so we'll make sure she comes down a little further in. It does feel like it has a little slot, or maybe it's just a wear mark where this other big spring sits. Doesn't seem to be, other than that, doesn't seem to be anything up there holding that spring particularly in place. But on this, we have to get this tool and over top of that spring. Once we press it down through the case, get this over top of it. And once it's over top of it, we can get the washer down through there. So it's nicely being held in place there with that. We've got her started. Then we need, got the little vice grip on the you've actually putting the old detent back in, so I'm using the new detent as a tool to decompress this spring so that we can get a washer in there over top of it. I don't need to be too daggone hard, but it needs to be hard enough that it's not going to go anywhere. And we need to make sure that this spring is a good spot. And I got a flathead screwdriver, and I found the slot down there, so that we'll go straight through with the detent. All right, here we go. First try, let's see what we can get. Use my right hand to press it down. Use my left hand to get this tool up in there. And the trick is making sure you get the detent lined up so that it will go down through the case and compress the spring. And so I feel like my vice grip turned in that tool here, so I'm going to tighten it up a little bit. Clamp that sucker a little bit harder. Get out a little bit further so that I can make sure I have plenty of depth. Ah, yeah. Missed it. Plug it up just a hair more. Try to keep it from sliding around. Probably tough with this material in here, but I don't want to chew it all to hell. So let's try that again. Like the whole spring got crooked on me that time. Goes. It's like a straight shot to the slot. again. It's really bizarre. There it goes. Had to get it at that angle. How about that? That thing back here, pushing down, slid up in there. That's a fight. I'm sure that's why they build the little boxes and stuff to hold it together with nuts and bolts and all that stuff. But you know, you get determined enough, I think you can get that sucker in there. So next thing we do is go ahead and put in our washer. I'm gonna go ahead and bring this up, back up to here. This doesn't need to be so tight to get this washer in there, I don't believe. And I'd rather have it a little bit flatter. Slide that thing up in there anyway. So all we're gonna do is make sure this is greased up real good, because you definitely don't want to fight this up through there. Probably down on the bar here. Hold that top of that one. Probably the bar down. And I got my little trusty pick. Pull this in, push down here. And I'm gonna slide that baby up in there with the pick. Remember what I said about getting a nice sturdy knife there. That'll help give you that ability to push down on that spring here just enough to let you slide this washer in place. We get it up here where we can see it, and we can get down in between our slot. Pry it down and maybe pull it some. Seems to be working too well. So we'll keep pushing this way. Oh yeah. Whoop, too far. But when you start pulling this out, it's going to try to come down with it. So let me try to pull that washer down. Well, I think we'll get it out of there and we'll all stay together. We'll try a screwdriver. Tap that way for the washer. Tap that way for the spring. Washer. Spring. Slide our tool out. She's holding on to that spring tight. There she goes. Look at that hot dog. Make sure she's in there. Oh yeah, there's a little detent slot down there. Check that out. Hot dog. Yeah. A little bit of grease on it. Grease on everything. A little grease on the detent. Slide her down in the hole. And you're lined up and she'll drop right in. Ooh-wee. Look at that. Man. That was like fight. Woo. So once again, the whole thing's gonna be in the car. Right around there, and we'll be shifting it like that. There you go. Yep. We'll get the plunger in there next, and stake our pins in, and we'll be good. Right. So let me set her up here. Tight there. We might have to see how much room we have for the plunger. Oops, gotta go this way because the plunger's got to hit the detent. So So you know that's the way it goes. So gotta make sure I got enough room in my vise there to my plunger go in, and then we're gonna take a little screwdriver, stick it up here so that we can locate our plunger out a little bit so we can get our driver pins in. There we go. All right, just got a set of pins here. Let's go ahead and tap these babies home. All right, you want to just get them down past the level of the carrier there, the receiver, so that you're not sliding back and forth against anything. I guess it's in there pretty snug. That's why it's good to have a roll pin punch. Kind of holds it in place when you're tapping it and it's not dancing all over the place. Just blow that surface. And then there you have it, man. But, so there we have it. The old carrier and receiver. We still got to get our bar across there with our washers, and you can see the two pins there on both sides of the plunger. Interesting that that's how they move that thing back and forth with a set of pins on the plunger. Now the one thing you got to remember too is that you see how that pin comes out the back there. When it goes into this housing, it's got to be able to come out of the back. If you put it this way into the housing, there's nowhere for the pin to go. So you definitely don't want to make that mistake of putting this hole set up in the housing backwards. Got to have that hole and that on the back side of the case. All right, so next thing we'll do, like I said, we'll get that on there, and then start putting our gates, our shift levers and spacers in on here. All right, so I think we're good to go with this. Let's go ahead and put a little bit of grease. Now I got the thinnest plate here, goes on first. I greased all this up really good so that everything moves freely. And once again, I got the back plate set in here, like the whole plunger and everything's going in there. And I want this flat part up against the back of here. So when I set this in there, so I'm going to set this right there. You got your little hole here on top for your pin to go through. And then bottom here is where everything else lays on there. So go ahead and put that on there. And we will see if this, I'm not sure if this is going to work. Might have to flip it around. But just getting this all lubed up nicely here. Pull this over out of the way. And set this, oh, it's got to go, the reverse got to go down that way. So it does, it fits right down inside of the little vise there, so that works. The next thing, we got the thin plate goes between the reverse and the 1-2 slot. And once again, this has the little bevel for the front case and the bolt hole and all that stuff that's down there. So we're going to put this one in here this way. A little bit more, not enough grease. Good, just enough covering everything. We'll set that baby on there. We got a flat back and we got a little kick in the front. This is kind of a little more squared off around the back side here. And then we'll go with the 1-2. All these brackets have numbers on them, so if you don't know which is which, you can go online, and Brewer's Performance has a part numbers for everything that would help you remember. And you know, worst case comes to worst, you can pull it apart and flip it around a little bit. It's not really that hard. I'm going to get it all together and then I'm going to check it before I put that end cap on there. But this one goes with the pointed down towards the reverse lever there, so to give you the space between the two levers, so that you can get your shift linkage in between there. If you put them too close together, you wouldn't be able to get any shift linkage on them, so they need to be separated with those offsets. Put them all in there. Yep, and there, that is it. They are together. So the only other thing that goes on top of there would be the spring, just like that. Kind of hold everything in place once it's inside the carrier. But I like to slide this in after everything's in there, because that makes it a little bit more of a fight to slide everything into the carrier. Go ahead and get this lubed up in here nicely. So there we have our hole set up. I'm gonna go ahead and take this out of the vise and see if we can't slide her together. And then we'll take a screwdriver and line those holes up and see if we can get our pin through there. That. Oops. Oh look, we got a detent stuck to it. All right. Slide her into the housing. Of course, everything's going to try to move around on you once you get it in here, so your holes will no longer line up, and the pin's never going to want to go through there. So let's line it with a screwdriver a little bit, and then let's grease our pin up. I should have did that before, but you can do it with one hand greasing. How's that? So the pin down in there. All right. So of course it didn't line up, but we'll work on that. All right, that's it. She is in there. Now you can see pretty loosey-goosey, but that's because we don't have this last piece in there, which probably should have before I put the pin in. How about that? That's pretty funny. It's all greasy. Yeah. All right, there she comes. So everything's in there nice and straight. Now we get this last piece in there. I don't know that it really matters which way you put it. It doesn't have any different sides or anything, but I like to put the center part out against the case. Of course, this is pretty sharp, so be careful not to be slicing your fingers and stuff. That's it. Push the flat surface with the flat part of the screwdriver so you're not bending it up. Once you get it part way in there, we can go ahead and lined up again. Get a pin back in there. Easier said than done. Ah, look at that. The pin is in. And now she's got a little more fight to her. this cap on here. It's going to be a little bit of a fight, I think. Basically try to get one side in and then pry it in with the screwdriver into the other end of it. So how that works. That side in there. And out of here, you don't want to push too hard because you don't want to separate the case. The button. Oh, she popped out. All right, let's try that again. Hard with the greasy hand, once again. There we go with the greasy hands. Get it started. I'm just going to try to tap it the back end of the screwdriver, and she snaps right in. Look at that. Hot dog. Alright, so we still need to put this end on there. But we'll get that done. Get a alignment pin in there. Screwdriver works. I always thought that the reverse gear was part of the alignment, but the alignment pin does not go through this one. That's for sure. I don't know why that bracket doesn't have a hole in it, but maybe it's not supposed to. We'll find out. Maybe I'll be taking it apart again. So there you have it. Don't forget your dust cover. Slide her down in there. Slide on the other side there. And screwdriver in there. Give it a little bit of bend to it. Slide right in there. Dust cover. We're going to go ahead and do these shifter inserts next. Alright, so first thing on these little shifter handles is we just grease down inside of here. Nice thin layer like everything else. You don't want to go haywire with the grease. But these little slots, you know, you got the clip up here that grabs the shifter itself, the little detent in the shifter handle arm. And these, there's little holes inside of here, or little button points that are punching through the side of this shifter to grab these. So what we'll do is we're going to slide them down in there and try to get them pushed over on each side so that they're lined up right with those little buttons, which is not necessarily the easiest thing to do, but we'll see what happens. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Now that one went in there like really easy. I've seen these things where everybody's fighting with them before, but let's see what happens. Maybe it's the other side that you got to fight. That seems to be the trick. You get one side in and the other side don't want to go. Oh, here we go. So these overlap, I guess, a little bit until you get them all the way in. And you can't, I don't believe you can put them in together. So you got to kind of get them in there a little crooked at first. And then you got to try to find the button so that it sits flat on each side. There we go. It was not nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be, but she is in there. We'll find out when we go to put the shifter handle in how close or how far off we are, but I sure feel like they're sitting in there tight up against it. And we'll definitely grab that detent once it's down in there. All right, I don't want to stick it in there now, but when we get in the car, we'll put it in. All right, so we got it in the vise there. Went ahead and put the 1-2 into the neutral gate, and then I lined up the reverse rod with the other two, and this gives you the so this is basically going first to second, and then you go that little extra touch. See how much more you got to give that to get it over into the reverse gate. You can hear it clicking on that detent. That's the way it should be in the car. When you go to first gear, it shouldn't accidentally go into reverse. It should jam into first gear. And if you want to get it into reverse, you got to give it that extra oomph, and it clocks over right into that detent. And we're good to go now. We're not going to accidentally hit reverse instead of first gear. Last but not least, we got to get this pivot pin finished up. So basically we have this little mini nylon washer goes on here, and it'll sit flatter, and there it goes. You say it's got to come over a little bit to get it in there. We got the little wavy washer that goes on there, and then we got the bridge plate that goes on there. So to get that bridge plate on there, we got to pull that shifter over, and that way this will batten down on there. All right, so for the most part, the whole thing's got to go this way. The bridge plate on there. Got to be in a neutral gate. That's what it is. Get that thing to move. There we go. So you got to get the plungers. Got to go through the gates in order for the shifter to move over. The plunger's got to go through the gates. Let's put our little pin in there. So we got our gate lined up. Gate lined up. We should be able to push this whole section over here. So we get a plate down on there. There it goes. We got our plate down. We get it down in there nicely so that it won't go on crooked. Snug that up here. There it goes, right there. Alright, so trying to pop out of there, but let's go ahead and put our bolt on. Already got our nylon pin on there. Get our bolt on there, lock washer on there, and go ahead and snug her down. And you don't want to bend that plate on there so that it's you want it flat up against that bar there. So just keep snugging it down, snug it down. There we go. And you got the nylon washer in there and the little wavy washer. Try to keep this whole section here centered in the top. Once again, we just want it snug because that nylon lock will keep it in place, and it won't back out. There we go. Nice and snug. So that completes the assembly. You see everything moves in there nicely except for the 3/4, because the 3/4 is the home position for the shifter, the plunger. But there you have it. Now you clean this baby up on the outside here, and I'll throw some paint on it, keep everything from rusting. All right, guys, so I hope you enjoyed that build. I hope it gives you the confidence to move forward with your own build and go ahead and take care of your own shifter. You know, I've seen some videos online where guys rebuilt the shifter itself and didn't go through with rebuilding the receiver and carrier and all the springs and stuff. And that's fine. You know, mine, I just knew mine had a problem with it. So I had to get in there and replace all that stuff. But a lot of shifters, all they need is just to freshen up, take them apart, clean them up, grease them up real good, and put them back together again. You don't even necessarily need a new kit. So if you feel like your shifter's a little bit loose, lame, or not shifting well, you can just pull it apart, clean it all up, throw it back together, and put it back in the car, and see what that does for you. But I hope you all enjoyed the build, and we'll move on to the next thing. We'll get this baby back in the car in the spring. We'll get her out, and we'll talk about how it feels once we get her back in the car. I will certainly be glad to not be accidentally putting it in reverse at stoplights when the light turns green, and scares the hell out of the person behind you when you accidentally put it in reverse, start backing up at them, and they're moving forward. But thanks again for watching. Appreciate it. Make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss any more of my future tutorials or rides with the cars. And thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.